everyone, and thank you so much for coming out to support me tonight. I'm well aware that you all could be spending this time sleeping, and frankly, that's what I would have done. However, as I assume everyone is aware by now, we can't always get what we want, especially sleep. Just as I lost sleep because of this project, you all are going to lose sleep because of me. It's just how it works. Scanning the faces before me, I see plenty of important people, some more important than others. For one, my mentor, Ms. Kathleen Baldwin, the critically acclaimed author who has been working with me over the past few months in my topic of editing and writing. A School for Unusual Girls has been described as enticing from the first sentence, original and engrossing by the New York Times Book Review and Meg Cabot, author of the Princess Diaries series, respectively. The rest of you, I assume, are here out of social obligation. Some of you are my close friends, some of you are teachers I respect, and some of you I have never met in person, which is unusual because most ISM students invite only their close friends and family. Now I realize I don't have many friends. Just kidding. Those people I haven't met with in person are staff readers of the district-wide literary magazine that I founded, fellow FISD students with whom I have only corresponded with online, thus making this their very first impression of me. Thanks for coming. You deserve better. I'm sorry. But what you do have in common, other than me, is that probably none of you are truly interested in a career in editing and writing due to your preference of a financially stable and fulfilling life. I understand. I know they say that money can't buy you happiness, but neither does being poor. So given the choice, I would also choose rich every single time. Anyway, despite the fact that my topic might not lie within your immediate field of interest, I hope that you will learn something from my presentation, even if its applicability may not be immediately evident to you. I hope that you can take away something from the giant ordeal that was my ISM journey, even if it is just watching me mature from a girl whose hobbies used to include reading, writing, antagonizing her cat, my cat's name is Cat, and being a generally boring person. Achievable goals, everyone. Let's begin. As the ISM program stands for Independent Study and Mentorship, one of our very first tasks was to choose a direction of study. I didn't start out with editing and writing. Selecting this path has been, in many ways, a process of elimination, and sometimes I think my ISM experience has really changed my topic more than it has me. Before editing and writing, it was book editing and writing, and before that, it was book editing. Before that, it was stem cells. Yes, stem cells. I have never been particularly interested in the medical field until I attended a genetic update conference for an AP biology field trip and began thinking that was what smart people went into. So I applied to and was accepted by the ISM program without even a basic understanding of what stem cells even were. The interviewers didn't know that I barely knew what stem cells were. I didn't even know that I barely knew what stem cells were. But if there's one thing I'm good at, it's pretending to know things. So a couple months after class started, I belatedly came to the troubling realization that I still wasn't familiar with what stem cells were, even after having done absolutely no research on them. I knew there was a lot of work ahead of me if I even hoped to secure a mentor, and I had zero motivation. This should have been the first sign. But instead of immediately switching topics, I dragged my feet a while longer, spending countless class periods trying to convince myself through convincing Mr. Pirtle, our ISM teacher, that I did want to pursue something medical and not just because it was a safer route, career-wise. I already write in my spare time, I told him. I don't need ISM to do what I already do on my own. The obvious second sign, clearly I can be extraordinarily unobservant when I choose to. Eventually, though, I came to a compromise, book editing. At the time, book editors seemed to me like a respectable writing applicable career that didn't overlap with my extracurricular writing. At this point, to start setting up our portfolios, we were told to select quotes to theme our ISM studies. I chose a quote by Victor Kayam. Even if you fall flat on your face, you're still moving forward. Ostensibly because it was only 30% as pretentious as the other quotes I found on page 1 of Google search, and was vague enough to apply to almost any aspect of my life, but really because it was late and I had an environmental science test the next day. I had no idea who Kayam was. His words didn't hold any special meaning to me, besides the fact that they were snarky and basically useless, which is something I relate to on a spiritual level. Anyway, After portfolios came the research stage, I gathered information on the career statistics of book editors, and the situation was less dismal than I imagined. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts the book publishing industry to remain stable for the foreseeable future, albeit in different mediums such as ebooks, as we transition further into technological dependence. The median wage for book editors is approximately $52,000, and the average is $63,000, indicating that some are much better off than others. Except the position of book editors, it's not entry level, so you have to work as an editorial assistant first, and that pays a sum I would rather not display. So there aren't any strict educational prerequisites to becoming a book editor. I was surprised that you don't actually have to have a degree in English or journalism or even publishing, really, because this industry values practical experience above schooling. In other words, the only in to the publishing industry is actually working in the publishing industry, catch-22. Kind of like how you need experience to get a job, but you actually can't get that job without experience. In this industry, even entry-level positions are hard to come by due to the competition. But that's where most have to start, from the bottom. Therefore, I can't stress enough the importance of getting internships, taking internships during the summer or during school. This is one of the points that every professional I've talked to agrees on. Which brings me to the real phase 1 of ISM. Interviewing season, or stalking people professionally. It's meant to preface the mentor search so we can talk to professionals in our chosen fields, test the waters, and get a feel for whom we want to mentor with throughout the next year. I searched up all the publishing houses and freelance editors in our area and compiled their contact information into a color-coded spreadsheet before I prioritized them and began working my way through the list, asking each contact for a brief in-person informational interview. Many of them I emailed, and one of them I cold called, which was such a traumatic experience. I couldn't look at my phone for a good 3 minutes. My first interview was with the editors at Henry Press, Miss Kendall Lynn, Miss Erin George, and Miss Rachel Jackson. These editors operate from a home office, and to this day I'm still not really sure if someone actually lives there, but the place certainly exuded a domestic vibe, what with its plush leathered sofas, kitchen, stairs, and most importantly, stacks and stacks of polished books. The comfortable work environment definitely appealed so much to me that I temporarily forgot my supreme state of overdress. They were wearing slippers, pajamas, and I was wearing this. But the interview went extremely well. We discussed the editing process in detail, and I picked up some surprising information. Curious about what they thought authors most misunderstood about book editors, I received 2 answers. Authors often believe that editors are out to get them, and authors believe that editors are only working on their one book at a time. The editing process is extremely involved to maximize individual attention. If I sent in a manuscript back in October and it got picked up, it would only be released in 2017 at best, and that's not even taking into account how booked they are with other titles. But mainly what I learned about book editing in this 3-in-1 interview, editors look out for 3 things: genre, voice, and cliches. If a manuscript is submitted to a house that doesn't accept its genre, for example, if someone submitted sci-fi to Henry Press, which mainly accepts mystery and a smattering of chick lit, or if its writing has no voice, which is something that can't be taught, or if it contains numerous cliches like make a beeline for, it joins the 98% rejection pile. My next interview was at Ben Bella Books, where the handshake incident occurred. I'm still a bit too traumatized to recount the entire experience in detail, but the worst of it included Miss Lane reaching out her hand, palm up, and me placing my leather portfolio in it, only to find that she was trying to shake my hand. I also conducted a phone interview with Miss Wigglesworth, a writer for the Dallas Morning News, as an oblique approach to the editing process, like I'd done at Ben Bella Books in getting the related publishing department's perspective on editors. My cell phone reception was non-existent, so I moved to my backyard, where it promptly started to rain. So I had just about contacted all the book editors, all the ones who responded anyway, in the area, so I decided to jump the gun and schedule a follow-up conversation at Henry Press. The only thing I hadn't considered was whether or not they wanted me. In short, no. Miss Lynn refused. A girl named Mackenzie had beaten me there, and they were only going to take one student per year. Watching their three faces nervously, scrambling for my thoughts, I asked, "Do you know what school she goes to?" I'm not sure what purpose this served, except maybe to help me track her down and neutralize her. Around this time in class, we were assigned a research presentation speech in which we were supposed to discuss our findings from interviews and our progress in securing mentors. I took the next week to recuperate from that fatal blow and write my speech, thinking back to when Mr. Pirtle once said our quotes were meant to serve as anchors in times of need and to help us refocus and lend us strength, which is just the type of inspirational optimism that I don't believe in, but I didn't have many other options. I approached my quote with bitter cynicism, as I do most things. Even if you fall flat on your face, you're still moving forward. But what good does moving forward do if you're now on the ground? And aren't you even worse off now that you have to pick yourself up too? It's like you're taking failure and just calling it success. And technically, all these terms can be used relatively. Couldn't forward be viewed as backward from a different direction? And what if you're moving forward in the wrong direction? As you can see, I overthink things a little bit. But after a couple days of wallowing in self-pity, I realized I had unwittingly given myself some actually helpful advice. Directions like forward and backward, they are relative. So you could turn to your left, or you could turn to your right, or even backward, and be moving forward from yourself. My diagnosis, I was falling on my face in every single direction, and I wasn't moving anywhere. What I needed was to fall on my face in one consistent general direction of my choice. Problem solved. With this healthy nugget of wisdom in mind, I gathered my wits about me, and it reevaluated my situation. I simplified all the information I've gathered about book editors into 3 key points. No money, no glory, and don't be one. No money, already addressed. No glory. Book editors do an incredible amount of work behind the scenes for little pay or recognition relative to the effort they invest. I had already accepted this. I took the fact that I was still interested in this field despite the lack of fame or fortune as a sign that I was truly passionate about this career. But finally, don't be one. One of the professionals I interviewed when asked for advice in pursuing a career in the publishing industry was don't. I thus decided to expand my topic to book editing and writing because A, the above reasons, B, I'd run out of local book editors to contact, and C, I'd realized that as I conducted research on book editing, I gravitated toward articles that discuss the editing process through the points of view of the editor and the author. So I brought in my scope of study to include writing, not unlike how you find nothing to eat in the pantry. So you close the pantry, lower your standards, and then open it, trying again. At this point, it goes without saying that I was incredibly discouraged. I felt like I was falling behind, which is a feeling I have never been able to stand. I felt like I had lost. But in hindsight, and this is far more important a point than any tips I could give you on book editing, everything worked out for the better. It's actually something I've come to gradually realize throughout my senior year. Things that were huge disappointments to me ended up leading me to better things down the road, or saving me further trouble. I'm so thankful for everything that went wrong up until this point, because I was able to then come to the realization that watching other people edit had never been what I was interested in. It was writing. It always had been. With this new direction, I contacted local authors and ultimately managed to secure a meeting with Mrs. Baldwin at a nearby Starbucks. Mrs. Baldwin, to my utmost surprise, immediately agreed to be my mentor, and we had our first couple meetings at the same Starbucks, where I would whisk out prepared writing samples in the cozy coffee shop atmosphere. Very J.K. Rowling-esque. Here's a snapshot from an early mentor meeting, which I've excerpted from one of my evidences of learning in my portfolio. For the greater part of the ISM year, we had to turn into Mr. Pirtle weekly 1- to 2-page reports to prove we were actually learning things. I would like all of that hard work to be of some use. So here we go. We're so alike, Mrs. Baldwin gushes. I sip up my caramel praline latte and nod sagely. We are alike. Besides the obvious fact that we both love writing, we also both favor the genre of young adult fiction. We both moved frequently growing up and complemented our uniquely diverse experiences by dabbling in fictional universes. She considers herself a slow writer. I take a painfully long time to compose a coherent sentence. She is most productive at night. I am less unproductive at night. She has a son whose wife is Taiwanese. I am Taiwanese. She is a best-selling author who is making a name for herself with her popular Strange House series. Moving on. It is quite a fascinating experience being able to sit across from the embodiment of what I want to become when I grow up and pick her brain about her writing process. What is the elusive writer's lifestyle? How does one go about forging success in a career that has become almost synonymous with rejection? What is it like living the dream? So from our first few meetings, I learned all about it and more. I showed her writing samples, mostly poetry I was planning to submit to the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards a week before the deadline, of course. She offered me feedback and I edited pieces. I ended up submitting to the poetry category and on a whim, the humor writing category with 2 posts for my blog, Nicole Sundays. What was that? Well, those submissions all ended up placing in a truly ironic twist. One blog post entitled Low-Key No-Key, Breaking and Entering is Deceptively Difficult, won the gold key. At this point, I figured I would simply compile a writing portfolio for my final product and be done with it, so I progressed to my next unit of my self-imposed curriculum, short stories. Mrs. Baldwin considers short stories a helpful stepping stone toward novel writing. Because in short stories, one has to have a solid grasp of pacing and controlled character development within a short time frame. This is the first paragraph of my short story, That You Are Loved. Charlotte thought the news of Mrs. Abbott's recent death was surprising, to say the least. Not because it was unexpected, but because she had been under the impression that the woman had already died. In about 3 weeks of working on it, I was able to finish almost 3 paragraphs. By the time Winter Research Showcase rolled along, the culmination of first semester ISM, in which ISM students across the district come together to exhibit their progress via display boards, rolled along. I was seriously reconsidering my writing portfolio idea. It was too much work, and I was embroiled in college apps and couldn't spare the time. This makes absolutely no sense if you consider what I actually ended up doing as my final product, but more on that later. Winter Research Showcase was a turning point of sorts. For one, I changed my topic again from book editing and writing to editing and writing because I couldn't fit that many letters onto the board. I then realized the painting of a book would make it still book editing and writing, but by then it was too late because I had already told people I changed my topic and I couldn't very well tell them I changed my mind, could I? So now I just keep my topic ambiguous because I like to confuse people. So the second reason why Winter Showcase was so important, I believe it was where the first inklings of my ultimate product manifested. 30 minutes before the showcase began, I came up with an activity to compensate for my booth's relative lack of decor or baked goods. I placed a blank notepad in front of my display board, wrote "Once upon a time" and asked people to continue the story. I'll read an excerpt. Once upon a time, on a dark and stormy night, a young man got out of his quesomobile. The quesomobile looked so good, however, that he decided that he should eat it. Unfortunately, he had no chips to do so. Then, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson showed up, and being Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, decided that the quesomobile was his now, and stole it, question mark, question mark, question mark. The second he entered the car, however, an entire army of ferrets attacked the car, eating all of the queso. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson escaped the quesomobile and went to a concert because he really loves Miley Cyrus, man. Honestly, it's my fault for expecting anything else. The lesson here, I told myself, is to never compile work written by high school students. So a month later, during a class brainstorming session for possible final products that would correlate to our topics of study, I was like, you know what would be a great idea? Compiling works written by high school students. Skipping to my conclusion. Anyway, I think it was worth it in the end. I'd like to read an excerpt from the inside cover of my magazine, my little letter from the editor, that I hope will tie things together nicely. My name is Nicole Sun, and I am the editor-in-chief of the Frisco Cadence's inaugural issue. At the risk of beginning this letter on an excruciatingly boring note, I will start by defining the word cadence, mainly for clarity and structural purposes, but also as proof to myself that I do actually understand what it means, and that there was actually a profound reason why I chose the name, because that would otherwise be extremely embarrassing. A cadence is essentially the modulation of sound. Think lilting voice, winding melody. More specifically, a literary cadence encapsulates the rhythmic elements of a poem, or writing in general, or what stitches together a patchwork of words into a poem. The heartbeat. For as long as I can remember, I have been in pursuit of this elusive cadence, both in my writing and in my life. From voracious late-night reading in the bathroom, to counting down the seconds until journal time while my peers counted down to recess, to painting the canvases of Microsoft Word documents with soothing familiarity, I thus explored the world around me, hoping to discover where I belong, where everything would settle into place. Spoiler alert, it didn't. My frustration with my non-progress was compounded by the dearth of writing opportunities at school, while the course material in Frisco ISD high school English classes included lessons on literature interpretation and formal essay structure to build a foundation of creative and analytical thought. I felt that I did not have an equal opportunity to apply my literary skills imaginatively. So after complaining for years about the lack of writing clubs or literary magazines at school, hoping that someone else would do something about it, I finally conceded defeat and conceived the Frisco Cadence. I founded the Cadence, a district-wide nonprofit literary magazine, to foster student interest in creative writing and showcase artistic talent. Ideally, the creation of the Cadence would pave the way for further school-sponsored opportunities to provide students with a voice and help them meet their intrinsic creative potential. Compiling this magazine has been an enormous lesson for which I had never asked. After reading and tweaking and formatting the expressions of my peers, I see now that I will never find my cadence. No one has, and no one will. It's not something that can be found. My cadence lies within my search for it. It is within me, dynamic and ever-changing. So as you flip through this magazine, think of your pulse thudding in your fingertips against the pages, and know that we are all searching with you. The Frisco Cadence was always about fostering the arts. It was never supposed to be about me. However, it did end up having very much to do with me, like most other things. I'm kidding. Or am I? The Cadence was like my child in that I created it, invested in it, bragged about it, poured my heart and soul into expanding it, loved it, and then it grew up to be an ungrateful little jerk to me. There were many times when I wondered why I was putting myself through all this extra work, wondered if I was even getting half of what I put into it. But eventually I was reminded of how I had intended to raise the Cadence, my original purpose in creating it, and I rediscovered my direction. I remembered that I had wanted to provide students with a voice and an outlet to help them meet their intrinsic creative potential. From then on, I have never strayed and have been rewarded for my perseverance. I've learned so much valuable information on editing and writing. I've tackled my largest project yet. I've created a final product of which I am immensely proud. But most importantly, I have grown from, as mentioned in the introduction, a girl whose hobbies included reading, writing, antagonizing her cat, and being a generally boring person. My hobbies now include reading, writing, antagonizing my cat, being a generally boring person, and independently actualizing my goals. So thank you to all of you for coming. Mrs. Baldwin, my staff, my friends, my family, everyone. I hope this was all worth that lost hour of sleep. Thank you.